I'm not sure what can save them right now, to be honest, but I think having a fifth leader in 5 years is certainly not going to do any good whatsoever. I think you've got to think about the Conservative Party membership here as well. They voted for Liz Truss, but she's basically been ripped apart, not just by the financial markets and those kind of vested interests, but also by many members of her own parliamentary party. They must be absolutely furious. They voted for her because she had a low tax agenda. She wanted deregulation. She wants an emphasis on personal freedom and personal responsibility. And all those things today have been completely thrown out of the window by Jeremy Hunt, who is a de facto PM. And Liz Truss is almost in a hostage situation, it seems to me, at the moment. Members must be furious. And the Conservative Party relies on those grassroots members come election time to deliver leaflets, to canvass, to get out the vote. I think some of them who voted for Liz Truss are probably on the verge of ripping up their membership cards tonight and posting them back to Tory HQ. So is the party really going to be able to win a general election without that grassroots support? Now, the only way I can see in which they are going to say yes to that question is if the Labour Party becomes so utterly unelectable. But right now, I don't see that. The policies that we have at the moment, economic policies in particular, are precisely those that the Labour Party would espouse. There's not much difference between the two parties. We have the status quo once again. Both parties now want to see the tax burden kept at the 70-year high. Who's to pick between them?
Culvia Ranger thinks things couldn't possibly be worse than they currently are. She's got to go.
Well, I think the question here is it about time that the Conservative Party puts the needs of the country first rather than the party? The issue we have here is that Liz Truss has burnt her political capital, what small amount of political capital that she had coming into number 10 in short time. And it's been a bonfire, really, because she's a mistake. She's presented it badly. She hasn't taken the party with her. And the public and everyone can see that. So to rescue the situation, really, she does feel like a lame duck prime minister at the moment and a lame duck leader. But I think the party will look to buttress Liz Truss because, as was being said, nobody really wants a general election right now. And changing the party leader for the Conservative Party wouldn't probably necessitate them setting out a timetable for a general election. And that's not going to happen this side of Christmas. And it's probably, if it is going to happen, would be early spring. So Truss gets to be held up in place by people around her, and like Jeremy Hunt, because actually the Conservative Party needs to put the country first. It needs to show that it can be credible, it can be calm in power, it can demonstrate that it is listening, but also providing the leadership that the public want. We've all been through the physical challenge of COVID. It feels a responsibility on politicians not to be taking the country through this whole psychodrama. So calmness, a solidity around Liz Truss. She gets held in place till either a unity candidate comes forward and can seek a timetable for a general election at some point next year.
Jerry Hayes, if the Tories don't think that Liz Truss is the leader to fight the next election, she's got to go in a timely manner. They can't stretch this one out, can they?
No. It won't be over until, I suppose, Therese Coffey sings. At the end of the day... Oh, thank you very much.
Naughty boy.
Nigel Nelson, old friend, wise old bird, got it absolutely right. What is the point of Liz Truss? Trussonomics has been buried. It's been given a funeral, and there's 6 foot of concrete over the top. So what is the benefit of the Conservative Party? It's about power. It's about keeping the centre of power. And these people are not stupid. Liz Truss was an experiment. It didn't work. She's got to go. I suspect she will be gone probably before Prime Minister's question time. She can't communicate. She learns little messages, delivery, putting the country first. All sorts of weird stuff, which means nothing to people. People are rather terrified about their mortgages. They're terrified about their jobs. And they need the old-fashioned, decent, compassionate Conservative Party who really cares about ordinary people. And they haven't got that at the moment. And if they don't get it, if they don't get a unified leader or leader who can unify the party, the Tory party will be over. It will just disappear into little fractions, and you'll get the likes of UKIP, you'll get the likes of Jeremy Corbyn, and then we've got a disaster on our hands.
As with Tony Blair for the Labour Party, potentially Keir Starmer in the Labour Party, I think the Tories have got to choose someone they don't particularly like, but who can deliver power. Jerry?
Yes, I entirely agree. I think Jeremy Hunt has done incredibly well. He's actually calmed the markets down. Suddenly, a grown-up has appeared on the front bench. And dear old Liz just looked totally tranquilised and traumatised. Of course, she just had a visit from the man with the bottle of whiskey and the pearl-handled revolver. That's why. She'll be gone soon. Look, fact is, do you want a Labour government? We can all argue about left, right, Brexit, non-Brexit, Remainers. Do you want a Labour government? If you do, keep Liz Truss. If you don't, get someone like Jeremy Hunt, maybe Rishi Sunak, maybe somebody else. But there's got to be competence and honesty and decency. And that's been sadly lacking.
Good luck that. I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you, Jerry. The clock's against us. Suzanne Evans, assuming that Liz Truss does go, who's next, do you think?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? There isn't really a unity candidate that's going to kind of unite the faction for Liz Truss and the faction that was for Rishi Sunak. That person simply doesn't exist. I think Penny Mordaunt was arguably auditioning for the role today. I think Jeremy Hunt is probably doing the same thing. I personally wouldn't want to be voting for Jeremy Hunt as Prime Minister. He was one of the most vociferous lockdown fanatics. He never questioned fiscal responsibility when we were splurging hundreds of billions on the furlough scheme. He was one of the main agitators for keeping schools shut throughout COVID. I think his record on that's utterly appalling, really, and arguably he's one of the people responsible for this mess that Liz Truss was doing her best to sort out. And I find it quite astonishing, actually, that a former Conservative MP like Jerry is saying that Trussonomics is dead, when actually that Trussonomics is basically good old-fashioned Conservative, low-tax, responsible principles.
Culvia Ranger, I agree with Jerry Hayes. I'm not even sure Liz Truss will do Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. If she does, it will be her last. Assuming she does go, who's next? Who gets your vote?
Well, as Suzanne was saying, it's around competency. And I think after 12 years, the challenge is that a lot of people in the Conservative Party have baggage. There are decisions that they've made. They'll be on one side of an argument or the other. That gives them factions. But I think there are still a number of talented people on the benches and in cabinet. And a name that really strikes me always is someone like James Cleverly. There are people around the party who are vastly experienced, both with the grassroots of the party and are seen as senior figures in the party. But I think at the moment, as I say, if the party chooses to change its leader, then it will have to set out a timetable for a general election, because the public will find it very hard to stomach a party having another leader without a political mandate. And at that point, they'll have to have a battle plan for the election. Okay. But I think Boris Johnson will play a part in that battle plan as well.
Interesting. Jerry, I've only got a few seconds, but you're not having James Cleverly Prime Minister.
James Cleverly makes a nonsense of nominative determination.
And on that classical note, listen, Jerry, I know you're not a fan, but it's been a fascinating conversation. My thanks to former advisor to Boris Johnson, Culvia Ranger, political commentator Suzanne Evans, and ex-Tory MP Jerry Hayes. So what do you think? Can replacing Liz Truss rescue the Tories? Ali on Twitter says, of course she can't. Not now. The Tories are done. They've lost too many votes and too many supporters. Time for a new centre-right party with Boris at the helm. Was he right-wing? Nick on Twitter says, no, Labour are going to win the next election. It's better to go now and let Labour have the headache of fixing the mess rather than stay and make an even bigger pig's ear of things. Tom on Twitter says, no chance, it's over for the Tories. They can keep replacing their leaders until the cows come home. Labour will be in power by then anyway. And your verdict is in. Just 20% of you agree that replacing Liz Truss will help the Tories. 80% say it won't make a blind bit of difference.